Here's something that we've learned about the 2025 Seattle Mariners. When the better pitcher is on the mound, the Mariners are going to win the game.
You are Locked On MLB, your daily MLB podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, baseball fans, and welcome to Locked On MLB, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. This is the daily podcast. We talk about all of Major League Baseball. I am your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully. Today's episode is brought to you by our good friends over at FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5. And if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download the app today. Follow us at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter or whatever it's called these days. And on Instagram, I'm your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball Podcast and Instagram. And the best way to get a hold of us is right here on the YouTube page. Leave a comment in the section. Make sure you use that hashtag EverydaySully so we know where the comments are and we can find them as they are. Let's talk about the trivia question, shall we? What Hall of Famer has the most career strikeouts in ALCS history? And Big John 08865 answered a really great guess, which is Andy Pettitte, except Andy Pettitte's not in the Hall of Fame. There you go. But it was Bill Dunkel, H9E, got the answer correct. It was Mike Mussina. By the way, I talk about Don Mattingly having horrible luck with World Series rings with the Yankees, and that he came in 82 and his last season was 95. And so he perfectly missed two sections of World Series appearances for the Yankees. Mike Mussina is not far behind. He arrived with the Yankees in 2001 when they finished their three straight World Series titles, winning 4 out of 5 years. And then he retired after 08. He won 20 games and he called it quits. And the Yankees won the World Series the next year. So Mike Mussina, even though he pitched absolutely brilliantly in the 2001 playoffs and World Series, obviously the Yankees did win that, and he was on the team in 2003, but he never was on a World Series winner. So there you go. Great, one of the best pitchers certainly of his time. Hall of Famer, absolutely deserved it. Some other Yankees who's had horrible luck. Bobby Mercer was one who missed the end of the Mickey Mantle years and was traded away during the Bronx Zoo years, only to come back to be on the losing side of the World Series in 81. Jason Giambi was another one. Showed up in 2002, ended in 2008 with the Yanks. Played in a World Series, 2003. Never was on one. Mike Stanley, in some ways, is one of the biggest ones, that he was part of some bad Yankee teams and some pretty good Yankee teams. And then was 1996, played with the Red Sox when the Yankees won the World Series, returned to the Yankees in 97, but they didn't win the World Series that year, and left the Yankees after that, and they kept winning World Series. Anyway, someday I'll do a thing about bad luck Yankees, but this is not about the Yankees anymore. This is about game one of the ALCS, which was a terrific game. It was an absolutely terrific game, and one of those games where the vibe of if you thought you understood what was going to happen in this game at the beginning, you were sorely mistaken. You take a look at the pitching matchup. The Blue Jays had a couple of days off after eliminating New York, and were able to line their pitching staff exactly the way they wanted to. With Gausman, gave their bullpen, who pitched a clunky game in Game 3, and pitched a brilliant game in Game 4. Everyone was rested. Everyone was ready. Seattle played the final game against Detroit, which may still be going on. The game ended, and then had to fly across the country and over the border to Toronto. And I'm not saying they were gassed, but you had every right to expect them to be gassed. And Gausman, got out. He got a little bit of trouble in the first, but he wiggled out of it. And the first pitch that Bryce Miller threw gets deposited into right field off of George Springer. And the nanosecond that happened, I thought, oh boy, I actually said the words, "Oh boy." Now, as I said, I think this is a great matchup. I am. I hope I'm not offending anyone. Everyone has someone that you're going to root for. I would love to see the Mariners in the World Series, so that is what I'm pulling for. But that being said, I have no ill will against the Toronto Blue Jays, and I think, and if they make the World Series, I think they'd be a great story, especially because of Don Mattingly. And I did pick the Mariners because there's something about their pitching and their depth that I like. But I also said I think this will be a fabulous series. But, Bryce Miller pitched one game in the Detroit series and didn't get through the fifth. He didn't pitch particularly badly. He only let up 4 hits and 2 runs, but, they took him out. And when I saw, oh boy, if they have to get back and it's supposed to be another bullpen game and the Blue Jays have Gausman going, this looks like a Toronto night because we all saw in the series against New York when the bats get going for Toronto, it isn't just home runs. They got the guys. They could spray the ball. They get check swing hits. They hit it the right way to right field and everything like that. And if the first pitch is going to make it a 1-0 game, file that under yikes. Well, and Lucas wound up hitting the ball off the knee, but he gets on base. I'm thinking, oh boy, this is going to be a long night for the Mariners. And then something happened. Miller settled down. Miller absolutely settled down. And if you look at his final line, he threw 6 innings. He walked 3 batters, and he let up 2 hits. He let up 1 hit after the Springer home run. He did walk 3 batters, but none of them came around to score. And then Spire, 1-2-3 inning. Brash, 1-2-3 inning. Munoz, 1-2-3 inning. And even though it was a close game, it was like these weren't intense pitches they were throwing. I mean, Brash, I have the box score right here. Brash threw 8 pitches. He could pitch tomorrow. Spire threw 8 pitches. He could pitch tomorrow. Munoz threw 8 pitches. They combined for 24 pitches. Boom, boom, boom. And I mean, the Mariners bullpen and the pitching staff retired 23 out of 24 batters at one point. This is the same Blue Jay team that seemed to get base hits at will against New York. But, you got to give the Mariners the credit, all the credit in the world, because they had the pitching that shut them down. And they're in charge now. They're in charge because Toronto pitched their ace today, and they lost the game of which the ace pitched. And I want to talk about that for a second because they made a decision that while it was happening, I didn't understand what they were doing. And now that the game is passed, I really don't know what they were doing. Today's episode is brought to you by our good friends over at Monarch Money. Some people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's when you got to use Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings the entire financial life together in one clean and easy-to-use interface on your laptop or on your phone. Monarch Money is built for people like me, people with busy lives. If you put off organizing your finances, Monarch is for you. Monarch does so much of the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your financial situation without ever touching a spreadsheet. And you can maximize your investment, increase your savings rate, and you can easily review your finances with your partner or your financial advisor and have a clear view of your financial health from week to week, long term, and for whatever. Don't let the financial opportunities slip through the cracks with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off the first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com if you use the code LOCKEDONMLB. Okay. John Schneider did a hell of a job getting the Blue Jays to the AL East Championship and to the LCS. And I get the fact that Chris Bassett has been added to the roster, as has Max Scherzer. And if Bassett can pitch all right, then that's another good pitcher, starting pitcher in there. And they're crossing their fingers that Max Scherzer can reach back and give one more. This could be the last start of his career. It would not stun me if this was his last appearance in the playoffs. But those are ifs. And you have Yusevich. Is it Yusevich or Yusevich? Yusevich, who pitched brilliantly against New York, but you can't bank on him throwing another masterpiece. They had their ace pitching today. Toronto had their ace pitching. And with 2 outs and 2 strikes in the 6th inning, everybody was standing up. At that point, he had let up 2 hits and no walks, and struck out 5 and no runs. And I'm watching the thing like he's absolutely going to the 7th and facing Cal Raleigh. Cal Raleigh gets a hold of one like he did 60 times during the regular season. Okay, well, it's tied 1-1. And then up steps, he walked Rodriguez. And Polanco was coming up. And they pulled him. And I said, as it was happening, what? You're pulling him? And in came Little, and Little allowed the run to score. Look at run, score, and everything like that. I get it. But here's what I don't understand. I know they're rested and ready with their bullpen. The move didn't work. The inherited runner came in to score. And this is the one pitcher who could possibly give you length. The one pitcher that you can hand the ball. Savage could wind up throwing another masterpiece, or that could have been a fluke. The Yankees have a history of not hitting well against pitchers they've never seen before. You don't know what the hell he's going to do to Seattle. Seattle's a smarter team than the New York Yankees. And Gausman could have pitch him into the 7th and take him out if he lets up a base runner. Now, Varland wound up pitching well in the 7th. Fine, he wiggled out of a little trouble. But Seranthony Dominguez allowed a run gave up a run. I mean, at this point, first of all, we've seen extra inning games, but we've also seen starting pitchers being pulled way too early. Gausman didn't throw 80 pitches. Gausman threw 76 pitches. 76 trombones, 76 pitches. And you took him out. The one pitcher who could give you possibly 7 innings on this roster. Who knows? Bassett may pitch great. You don't know that. Savage may pitch great. You don't know that. Max Scherzer could reach back and throw one more masterpiece. You don't know that. Gausman, who at that point had let up 3 hits and 1 walk. He let up the home run to Raleigh and had a runner on base. And you pulled him. Suddenly the lead was gone. Next, it's 3-1. And maybe the Blue Jays lose anyway. But I think we're starting to see that there is an epidemic of not letting the pitchers go a little bit further. And it's going to catch up to some of these teams as they do the parade of the bullpens. You saw in games 3 and 4 of the series against New York, if a bullpen game goes badly, you have game 3. A bullpen game goes well, you have game 4. It's almost even money either side. You had the bullpens do wonderful work in the final game between Seattle and Detroit as it went to the 15th inning. But if you're burning through pitchers the way they did, Toronto used 1, 2, 3. They used 6 pitchers tonight. 6 in a 3-1 game. What would happen if Toronto tied the game and they started going into extra innings and you burned through? Look at some of the pitchers of Fleury throw 10 pitches. Seranthony threw 17 pitches, Little threw 11, and then boom, you're starting to have to turn over a rock and see who can crawl out at that point. I don't understand why Gausman did not pitch. It did not finish the 6th. I don't. I would have him. He should have been on the mound in the 7th. Meanwhile, Miller, he finished the 6th. I thought he was only going to go 5, but he was pitching so brilliantly. And I thought, are they going to let him throw the 7th? And do you know what? They didn't. He had some injuries this year. They got, after letting up a home run on the first pitch, if you told me that, hey, he's going to look like Don Drysdale through 6 innings, you say, let's count our blessings. And Spire, Brash, and Munoz made it count. But Miller isn't looked upon as the guy who's going to give them a lot of innings. Gausman is. I don't get it. Someone has to explain it to me. Someone has to explain it to me because your pal Sully does not get it. But game 1 is in the books, and they faced Gausman. The Mariners faced Gausman, and they won the game. Twice they faced Tarek Skubal, and they won both of those games. This is one reason why I have a ton of confidence. And when I picked the Mariners, I'm actually feeling pretty damn good about that pick right now. They don't care if you're throwing an inevitable Cy Young Award winner like Skubal or an all-star caliber pitcher like Gausman. They'll find a way to win, even if the pitcher pitched well. Gausman was pitching like an ace until the home run by Raleigh. Skubal pitched like an ace in both the games. And here we are. And tomorrow afternoon at 2 o'clock in the afternoon here in Los Angeles and 5 o'clock in Toronto, Gilbert's going to be pitching. Gilbert was terrific against Detroit. And Yesavage, and this is Yesavage, who has yet to let up a postseason hit, is going to be facing the Mariners. And we're going to see, was that a fluke? He's a guy with great stuff, and the Yankees have a history of not being able to hit pitchers they haven't seen before, or is he a star in the making? And Gilbert may match him 0 for 0. Yesavage is probably not going to have the luxury of the big, huge lead that Toronto gave him relatively early in that game. Meanwhile, the Brewers have not announced who their game 1 starter is going to be. It's I'm not sure who it's going to be at this point. Snell is going to be pitching for LA. But as of this recording, TBD is pitching. Is it going to be Peralta? I don't know. Is it going to be Quinn Priester? If I were a betting man, and despite FanDuel being a sponsor of this show, I'm not a betting man. I'm going to guess it's going to be Quinn Priester. And they're going to Peralta pitch game 2. But you know what? I'm not the manager. I want to end that rumor right now. And Snell is hearing all this conversation about pulling pitchers too early in a game. And he's thinking, yeah, do me a favor. Tell me what that's like. And speak about not being a betting man. Hey, the NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer that you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 to get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you unlock $300 of bonus bets to use across the apps. Do you want FanDuel adapts to however you like to bet on the games? You like to build parlays. You want to try the player props. Some people like to follow the live lines during the games. It makes watching football even more exciting when you got a little something riding in on the action. Whether you're a casual fan like I am or you love diving into the stats, FanDuel makes the game day experience so much better. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com and download the FanDuel app today and get started. I got to tell you, one of my favorite angry messages that I got on YouTube, I got from this was glorious. Nick K 395. I just out of habit, I refer to the park that the Brewers play in as Miller Park. It was Miller Park for a long time. It's a great name, and it was, Miller is it's a brewery. It's a beer brewery, and the Brewers play there. And we have Coors Field for the Rockies. We have Busch Stadium for St. Louis, and we have Miller Park for the Milwaukee Brewers. And I don't drink alcohol at all. I'm not a beer drinker, but I would be fine if beer was taken out of baseball games altogether, because most of the time something bad happens at a ballpark, the phrase "they were very drunk" comes into play. But I like that you had another stadium that was a beer-related stadium. And they've changed it to, I think it's American Family Park or American Family Stadium. I think that's an insurance company. And it just doesn't feel right. It was Miller Park. That was a cool name for it. And I said, I stumbled, American Family or whatever it's called now. Kind of like what I say about Twitter. And Nick KK395 says, "You call yourself a baseball channel and you cannot remember the name of the field?" Miller had the chance to retain the naming right, decided not to, continue with the naming rights. Of all the things that I've said to get mad about, me getting slightly flummoxed about the name of the Brewers Stadium is that's a new one for me. That's a new one. But it's true. It's like they've renamed my favorite stadium in baseball is where the San Francisco Giants play, which is now called Oracle Park. But there are times I still call it Pac Bell, and there are times I've called it AT&T Park. And there was it was an SBC. There was like another combination of letters which did not roll off the tongue. I mean, I still call it Marlins Park because I know it's Lone Depot Park, and it was U.S. Cellular Field, and it was Guaranteed Rate Field, and now it's Rate and then Safeco Field is now Team. Like they change it around. So you'll forgive me as I'm trying to follow baseball as closely as I can. I may forget some of the stadium renames, especially if it doesn't flow off the tongue. So there you go. One of the interesting things I talked about how this is a matchup. This ALCS is a matchup of two franchises that were born in the same year. They both came about in 1977. There's a couple of books you should probably read. The Lords of the Realm, which is about the foundation of it's basically the history of baseball behind the scenes. And there's also a great book called Stumbling Around the Bases, which is about some of the mistakes the American League made in the expansion. The existence of the Mariners and the Blue Jays are entirely based upon a lawsuit from the 1910s. There was a third major league that wanted to form. And there's a great book called The Outlaw League, which is about that third league called the Federal League. And they were going to offer bigger salaries and free agency and play in some markets where there already was an American or National League team and some new ones. There's going to be a team in Baltimore, a team in Buffalo, a team in Indianapolis, a team in Chicago. And the league folded after a few years, and it left two lasting legacies. One is the stadium they built for the Federal League's baseball team in Chicago was called Wegman Park. And when the Cubs moved into it, they renamed it Wrigley Field. I'm sure there's some old timer saying Wegman Park or whatever they're calling it these days. The other thing is that the Federal League sued, saying that the American League and the National League were creating a monopoly. And the Supreme Court says that baseball got an antitrust exemption, that they are a business, but not a real business. They're not a real business the way most real businesses are, which makes no sense. But baseball has that antitrust exemption, and they cling to it like a koala. And anytime anyone sues to basically say, we're going to challenge your antitrust exemption, they settle really fast. Now, Seattle got a Major League Baseball team in 1969. Read the book Ball 4 by Jim Bouton if you want to hear about the ill-fated Seattle Pilots. They were supposed to expand in 1972, but because Kansas City was starting to sue baseball after the A's left, they wanted a team faster. They sped up the expansion process, and Seattle didn't have a stadium ready in 1969. The Pilots played in six fields, which six stadium or six field. I can't remember if it was a field or a stadium. All I know is it was practically empty. And the Pilots basically went bankrupt. And a fellow named Bud Selig, he shows up later, bought the Pilots, and whether it was legal or not, had them play the 1970 season as the Milwaukee Brewers. The Brewers had left, the Braves had left for Atlanta. Milwaukee wanted a new team, and he basically moved the Pilots there. They became the Brewers, and Seattle got mad. A lot of contracts were broken. A lot of agreements were broken, and they threatened to sue Major League Baseball. They wanted a new team, and they got a new team. The Chicago White Sox were dead, and Danny Kaye, the great comedian, was going to buy the Chicago White Sox and move them and make them the Seattle White Sox, and everything seemed in line. Meanwhile, with the success of the A's, although they didn't draw particularly well, and the floundering of the Giants and the Stoneham family losing interest in the team, it looked like the Giants' days were over. And at that time, People didn't think the Bay Area could support two teams. How times have changed. And the Giants decided, you know what? I'm going to leave baseball and the Bay to the A's. And it was north of the border that was calling them. And the city of Toronto were going to bring the Giants and have the Toronto Giants start to play in either 76 or 77. But Bill Veeck, read Veeck is in Rec, another one of the great baseball books of all time, former White Sox owner, also former Browns owner and former Cleveland Indians owner, the man who integrated the American League and also had a dwarf come up named Eddie Goodell to hit in the major leagues, later did Disco Demolition, swooped in and thwarted the Seattle bid and kept the White Sox in Chicago. And the Lurie Group came in and bought the Giants and kept them in San Francisco. Well, we like the White Sox in Chicago. We like the Giants in San Francisco. But do you know who didn't like that? The city of Seattle, who now got screwed out of a second team. And Toronto wanted a team themselves. And they aimed their sights at Major League Baseball and said, to hell with your antitrust exemption. We're going to challenge it. And the people of Toronto said, we don't care about your antitrust exemption. You may notice we're Canadian. So, with these lawsuits about to topple the obviously incorrect ruling that baseball should not be subjected to antitrust, they should have an antitrust exemption. Sorry, my mouth sometimes is not in sync with my brain. That baseball knew they will lose big time, and they just lost the huge lawsuit that allowed them and had the rulings, the legal rulings against them, against the reserve clause, which meant players could be free agents. They had that's a huge defeat for for the owners of Major League Baseball as free agency came about. And now they're going to lose they were going to lose their exemption. What do you do? Because they knew they would lose if it was brought into court. Do what happens? They expanded to settle with the city of Seattle and Canada and the city of Toronto. They expanded and created two new teams. Out of the blue, they had this expansion. Wait a minute. No, wait a second. We'll expand. And they created two new teams, the Seattle Mariners and the Toronto Blue Jays. And they both played their first games in 1977. This time, Seattle had a stadium. They built a multi-purpose dome called the King Dome that the Mariners shared with the Seattle Seahawks. There was a stadium called Exhibition Stadium in Toronto. It was a very weird stadium. It was clearly a soccer stadium where half of it was roped off. And that was the home of the Toronto Blue Jays until the Sky Dome, now called the Rogers Center. See, I can remember some of the stadium names. They played there from 1977 until 1989 and played the 1985 American League Championship Series there and had the single most talented team to not make the playoffs I ever saw, which was the 1987 Blue Jays. All played in Exhibition Stadium. It snowed like hell their first day. And when there's a great picture of Jack Brohammer of the White Sox with cross-country skis going across, or it was either cross-country skis or snowshoes going across the, no, it must have been cross-country skis going across the snow of Exhibition Stadium. So the existence of the Seattle Mariners and the Toronto Blue Jays is directly tied to lawsuits from the 1910s, a failed attempt to expand into Seattle in 1969, a thwarted attempt to move the White Sox, and another thwarted attempt to move the San Francisco Giants. And with that, we have two teams who are not born from ripping a franchise from its fan base, but rather both have a rich history, nearly 50 years old now, of superstar players and some heartbreaking near misses. And for Toronto, back-to-back World Series titles. And for the Mariners, a lot of hope for this year. So bring us to the trivia question. This was the first ALCS victory for the Seattle Mariners since the 2001. Oops, I made a mistake on this one. Let me edit that. since the 2001 American League Championship Series. Now, this being their first trip to the ALCS since then, it's going to lead us to this trivia question, of which I made a mistake in. What Mariners pitcher was credited with their only win in the 2001 ALCS? Their previous lone victory in the American League Championship Series before tonight. What Mariners pitcher was credited with their only win in the 2001 ALCS? Put your answers right down in the YouTube page. Thank you so much for making Locked On MLB your first listen today. For your second listen, check out the all-night Locked On MLB Game Night, every game, every night until a World Series champion is crowned. Get local analysis on a national scale. Find MLB Game Night at Locked On MLB or on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Talking about the Mariners staring down superior pitching and saying, no problem, we'll win anyway. Wondering what's up with Gausman being pulled too soon and the lawsuits that began these two franchises. This has been Locked On MLB. I am your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully.